Hey, hey, welcome to Your Best Podcast. I'm Teemaree, your best life coach. And today we're going to be breaking down personal growth for couples, which is huge, huge, huge. I'm so excited to have a phenomenal guest today. Katie Rössler is a couples counselor, and she is a seasoned relationship coach and a therapist. She specializes in guiding high achieving couples and taking them from survival mode to thriving relationship. Love, love. She shares practical tools, humor, and she has 15 years of experience. She empowers couples to rebuild trust, to deepen connection, and to rediscover joy. Woohoo!
Right?
Okay, come on. So we are going to break it down, and it's awesome. Thank you, Katie, for being here with us today. Thank you so much, because there's a lot here, just even in the introduction, that we can just dissect. Okay. High achieving couples. I happen to be a part of one.
Yes. Guilty, right? I
You know
feel
what I'm
it.
saying? And like taking it from survival to just thriving. There's so much here. So first, let's get to know you a little bit better. What is your longest romantic relationship to date?
Yeah, my husband. So we've been together for 15 years and married for 11 of those 15. That's the longest relationship I've been in. Yeah.
Fantastic, fantastic. And what caused you to become a couples counselor specifically, and even a counselor? So what was that about?
Yeah. So I actually started undergrad in physics pre-med. I was going to be a doctor. And I was so set on either doing like being a dermatologist or something like in that field. And the first semester, I remember being in the physics department and like having some of my classes, and I was like, these are not my people. And I was taking, of course, like Psych 101, and I was like, oh, these people though, they like to analyze other people. And I grew up as a military kid, constantly moving. So I didn't realize it until that moment of like, I have constantly been observing people and better understanding why they do what they do so that I knew how to like gel in there. And so when I went into psychology, I remember I called my mom and I was like, I'm going to be a family therapist. Like, I know that's my calling. Like, I know that's what I'm supposed to do. And she's like, okay, honey, right? Like, I'm going to be a doctor and now I'm going to go into family therapy. And of course, it was at a time where like family therapy, we had gone through family therapy when my parents were divorcing, but therapy wasn't one where it was like, you're going to make good amount of money. It was like doctor, lawyer, right? Like, therapist was
Sure.
like, "Oh, cool. You're like, great." That so later she loved it. However, at the time it was a bit of a shock for her system. But from there, yeah, I got my master's in marriage and family therapy. The more I started working with people, I'd worked with children, I worked with teens. I really tried it all during my residency, which is the point, right? Like, let's just see where I really want to be.
Sure.
And I loved sitting with couples. I actually do really well just sitting in the tension and like when a couples are back and forth and being like, raise my hand, be like, let me interject. Here's what I'm seeing, and helping them shift. Yes, it's uncomfortable, but it doesn't make me go like, oh my God, I get out of here. I don't know what to say or do. I can sit in those moments and really hear more clearly what's going on between the two. So it really was just my calling. It felt, as much as I still love doing family therapy and things, couples work to me is more the legacy work, right? Because they're going to bring it home to the next generation they create or to their friends
Yes.
and then pass that on. So for me, couples work is just really powerful legacy work.
That's one of the things I've got to say that I also agree with, and in terms of the residual, the ripple effects of when we get help with what's going on with a coach, a mentor, a therapist. It's amazing, because you said it right. It's like it absolutely is a positive, wonderful thing for whatever the situation that brought us there. But
Right.
then that positive change, it absolutely, without a doubt, without us even like specifically talking about it, just in how we're behaving now and what we're doing, it absolutely positively affects everyone around us. And that's really a driving force for me around this work, because I've said it before, and I know it probably sounds cheesy, but it positively affects the world. It's just like, you know?
Totally.
Yeah, this goodness that resonates out. Um, okay. So you're feeling comfortable with couples and you're able to sit in
Mhm.
this kind of tense space that sometimes, of course, inevitably is happening as couples are working things out, as we're kind of reaching our new level as a couple, let's say, right?
Right.
So one myth could be around people that might feel nervous about going to couples therapy is that, well, now how do we know, the therapist isn't going to be on your side or on your side? How do you navigate this with couples so that they can feel relaxed and know that you truly are a neutral party for them together? How
Yeah.
do you do that?
So what I do when I start with a couple is I do what's called a level 10 relationship assessment. We look at 7 core areas of the relationship and I do it individually with both of them. So it allows me to hear their perspective without interruption, without edit, right? Often when we're together, it's like on a scale of 1 to 10, how do you feel like your connection is? Like, oh, honey, what would you say? Like you want to say it's a 3, just say it's a 3. Like, not, it's a 6 because you said it's a 7. So, like, those are the things that I like to be able to hear from both sides. And in that experience, I think they build the trust to hear my goal is the relationship, right? I'm on the side of the relationship. And yeah, that's going to mean I'm going to hold each of you to the fire at different times of like,
Sure.
whoa, you said your goal is this, but I'm seeing you do this, right? Like, you're pointing the finger at them for this, but you just did this. So inevitably in sessions, and that it's funny, I'll start working with a couple and usually one of them kind of gets the hot seat first and you can tell they're like, but I usually pick the one I know is the most resilient, who's going to be able to go, that felt uncomfortable, but for the greater good. And then the next session they're like, oh, I see, right? Like this, it's not exactly a tennis match, but it's never one person who's fully at fault unless there's some things like addiction, affair, abuse, right?
Sure.
When we have got the core issues like that, and then I'm not going to do couples work with you because there are things that need to be addressed first
First.
before we can work on the couple, right?
Mhm.
um yeah, so that for me is the way that I get both of them to understand that you guys are presenting me your goals. That's my work, right? It's not about whose side. It's about the goals and how we get there practically. Like what makes sense in your life, being busy, being a high achiever, if you've got kids or no kids, if you have crazy jobs or not crazy jobs, whatever it is, the goals are my focus because that's what you've come to work on. And then if you need to shift the goals, we shift them. But I'm not going, well, she's right, because I'm a girl too. So
Yeah.
she's and that's what I hear a lot is like, well, if we're going to see somebody, it needs to be a male because then they'll be on my side. And I'm like, ooh, you don't really want to play sides. Sometimes people will go on sides because there are certain things where somebody needs to be empowered, right? And strengthened up and go, you're not alone. But it is a fine dance to make sure that both of them continue to see the value in the work they're doing together in your space.
Absolutely, absolutely, and I love that you offer that opportunity because it is true. It is so true. You see, what'll happen,
Yeah,
Katie,
right?
is that you're sitting with your significant other and, like, it's all safe in this bubble, but if certain things get said and, then it's like, "Oh, well, I thought we were at a 6." Well, no, well, it was a 3 for me. That whole ride home is gonna be so
That's uncomfortable.
I love how you offer this opportunity for each person to express themselves fully and honestly, and then to come together on what the collective goal as the couple is so that you're standing in the space for each of them representing the unit as the couple moves forward with you. That's fantastic cuz yes indeed. Now, okay. What are some of the common pitfalls that you're seeing some of your clients facing as high achieving uh, couples coming to you for now this help?
Yeah, some core things, being on autopilot in their relationship, right? Just acting out of habit. This is how we are. This is what we do. This is our cycle. And not being intentional. Even things like eye contact, putting your phone down to actually have a conversation. It's stuff like that. That's number one. Another thing on repeat I'm seeing is often both of them at some point throughout a day do what's called bids for connection. Like, hey, you want me to make you a cup of tea? Is a, hey, I want to connect with you. Maybe we'll drink that tea together, right? Or, hi, can I get this for you? Or things like that. And we don't pick those up as, we want connection. Like they want to connect with me. It's like, no, I don't want any tea. I'm fine. Thanks. Moving on. And it's because it's hard at a certain point in our relationship when we've not connected enough to be vulnerable and go, I want to make you tea and sit down and hear about your day. Would you be open to that? Right? Because they might get the tea's already been rejected. So like, why am I going to throw myself into the mix? So it's helping couples start to understand the power of connection, the power of communicating the desire for connection. Because often they both really do want it. They just aren't even seeing when the other one's trying because they're like, little toe in the water. Like, no, it's going to be cold and icy. So I see that on repeat. And then the third thing that's like continual is I totally respect my partner, but when I speak to them when I'm angry or frustrated or they forgot to do that thing for the 10th time this month, I don't speak to them with respect. And so therefore, I don't actually really respect them. And so there's this imbalance of, yes, I hold my partner in high regard. Yes, I respect them. Yes, I trust them. But how I talk to them, how I parent them, how I change the power dynamic when I'm upset at them shows them I don't trust them and I don't respect them. And that right there is like between that and communication and connection, like, why do you expect to be in the bedroom at all? Couples are like, we're just, we don't connect anymore. We don't have sex anymore. And I'm like, well, I can see the other core areas and I can tell you why. Who wants to be parented by their partner and then go get busy later on? No, most of us not, right? That's like, So it's being able to say, hey, I need to show my partner more respect as an equal, even if they fail to do the things I want them to do and expect of them. And how can we get the needs met and not cause disrespect in the relationship? And that is like, by high achievers, we get annoyed and it doesn't go our way and how we
Yes.
want it and in our timing. Yeah.
And I think I love everything that you're sharing. One big thing that I'm picking up, probably because it's something that I've personally I've had to work on and I still work on, is just, the communication and how what is being communicated is being received. Meaning,
Yeah.
my husband is my soulmate, my best friend. I love him. We've been together for 24 years now. And so we share a lot in common. We've spent a crazy amount of time together. Many couples do not spend the amount of time together that we spend. And we have had all those pitfalls. We have had the pitfall of we're both high achievers. We both are in business for ourselves. We both have multiple things that we do. And so there's that kind of moments, those seasons of being rote of like, this is how we operate through the day. We're like machines, just go, go, go. Or sometimes it's because we maybe share a lot of the passions that we have together. So then we never cut off into couple time. It's like we're just talking about business every day throughout the day. But one thing that you said that's really key and I think is powerful is that, and the reason why I want to reiterate that is just because I think it can help listeners to see how we don't know sometimes what we don't know. So, for example, what you said is key. It made me think just hearing you say it of like, when I'm saying something, is he feeling respected?
Mm-hmm.
And how would I know that he does or he doesn't? Because I think I'm maybe being clear or succinct Or
Mhm.
then I've overcorrected maybe in the past and I've been like, okay, no, that seems too short or curt. So then now I'm like, darling love, would you please,
Shakespeare comes out of you.
so sometimes we just don't know. So it's wonderful to be able to have a professional guide us to say, hey, when you said that, that actually comes off as not non-respect. What a huge
Right.
revelation, right?
Right.
So key, because I actually have, and good thing my husband is very open as well. So, I have had times where he's been like, dude, I'm not a kid. And I'm like, I'm not, meaning that. So having you say that,
Yeah.
that's a good awakening to say, oh, well, sometimes it doesn't matter how we mean
Right.
what's being heard. So a
Right.
huge revelation to any of us out there that, there's always, and that's what I love. I'm so passionate about personal development and personal growth for these reasons, because there's always something new, and not from a place because we're never good enough, from a place that, wow, there's
Yeah.
always more that we just don't know, that we say, oh gosh, I didn't know it was coming off that way, or I didn't know. Right. So how cool. How cool.
Right. Right. And a funny addition to my work, because I'm American, but I live in Munich, Germany, is that I work with expat couples. So usually bilingual, bicultural. And I tend to talk to them about speaking the same language. And I say, I don't have to stop understanding and speaking English to learn German. And it's the same with our love languages, our arguing languages, like how we need to receive gratitude. I can speak the language of my partner without, losing myself. And
Yes.
often people go, well, if I start talking the way they need to hear, it's not authentic and it's not me. But it's just learning another language. You're still you. You're going to say it with your accent. You're going to mess up that word, right? You're going to say the phrase incorrectly, but you're going to try to finally speak their language. And I get this a lot with people who are more like emotional and more thinker, right? And it's like, well, I don't speak their language. And they always joke, you're the translator, Katie. And I'm like, you guys actually can do this for each other.
Yes.
But it's about being willing to speak your partner's language, because that's what they're going to receive. So why do you keep speaking like you're married to yourself? You're
Yes.
not, right? Like you're not. So when you were talking about like, I think I'm saying it in the way that shows them respect, but I don't actually know. The only way to speak our partner's language is to ask and to receive feedback on, I'd like you to say it this way. And even it feels, oh, well, I feel forced. It's like this, they told me how to say it. Now it doesn't feel authentic to me. It's still, you're making it about you still,
You know
instead
what?
of about, I want my partner to hear me.
Yes. And see, two things that I think are really key out of that. I love that you touched on this, because one of the keys is, as high functioning people, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, Oftentimes, what I find in high functioning, not only in being a high functioning person, but also in helping others that are in that same boat and category, is that, we've often had to climb our way in some way. We've often had to be determined. We've often had to stay focused, and so, yes, this fear of losing ourself in the process,
Yeah.
that is very real, of like, okay, I really want to rise to this occasion, but how do I do it and not lose myself? That's wonderful. And then also I love that. I love how you put that, how it's like, honey, we are multilingual in here. Okay. Like
Right?
we
Yeah.
speak the languages. And I love how you put that, because that's a beautiful way to say, hey, listen, you're not dropping you. You're picking up another language. Now,
Yeah. A whole skill set. Yeah.
what happens though if you ask your partner, because we get this all the time. I get this with clients sometimes in navigating, and trying to get stuff from them in coaching sessions. But even, in relationships, marriages, what happens when you are trying though? What is a tip for when you are trying to say, hey, how would you like me to say this? And maybe your partner doesn't know how to guide you. Um,
Yeah.
what happens there? What do you recommend?
Yeah, because that can happen, right? Sometimes we're on our personal growth journey to a level and our partner's not quite there yet. So, one of the things I recommend is just having a discussion about trial and error. Hey, I'm going to try this out. If it lands well, you tell me. And if you're like, ooh, then we know that's not working. But I want you to know I'm actively trying to figure out a better way to communicate this with you. And so then it's a teamwork thing. Because often when we're like, well, how do you want me to say it? It feels like another thing on their to-do list to figure out. And another thing, like, I don't know, I just not the way you're saying it. Like, just don't do that. And it can feel like I had a client the other day. She's like, oh my God, I'm so tired of healing. Can these things just not be related to healing anymore? And I was like, I got you. I understand. But what if it's like, let's test it out. Let's try this out. Let's try that out. We're failing forward every step of the way. Then it feels more like togetherness and trying to figure out how we want to receive things. Because some of us, had also high achieving parents who are really critical, really strict with us, really demanding. So any feedback feels uncomfortable. It's either I need to get defensive or I need to shut down. And so it's like, well, I don't even know what feels good right now because I've taught myself to put walls up to anything. So then you just trial and error it. Hey, the way I say that, did that work for you? And if you've got a partner who's like a one-word answer person who's like, yep, just go with it, right? Their language is that because I always think of it like the ocean, right? Like it looks calm on the outside, but then deep down, it's like all this stuff's going on. That's happening for them. And you just have to keep going with the yeses. It's like hot and cold, that, the game where it's like, warm, 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 hot, hot, hot. It's like, yep,
Burning.
is like, we're moving in the right direction. Like that works. Okay. And then you can be like, was it my tone of voice? Yes. If you want to get more specific, you can, but it will feel sometimes like pulling teeth, and you just have to honor like that ocean is going on for your partner and they're just trying to really understand for themselves too, this whole thing. And people talk about relationships being work, but they don't tell you what the work is. And
Yes.
one component of the work is us figuring ourselves out and our wounds and our stuff we got to heal. And the second part is, how do I do that in the context of a relationship where I can share I need something from them, but not expect for them to solve and fix? And
Yes,
that's where the
yes.
work is. And that's hard. That's hard.
It is hard. It takes a lot to be, well, first of all, it takes a lot to be confident to do that, to own and share with confidence of like, hey, this is what I'm feeling, this is what I think, this is how I'm evolving, and then also to have the confidence to be mainly vulnerable. Even though this is maybe, of course, not even maybe, if you're in a relationship with someone, you love them and you trust them enough to be saying, I want to do life with you. You are my person, whether or not you've said yes to full on marriage. I mean, living
Right.
together, you're a couple. So, but it's still that confidence, that vulnerability, and then there's the awareness. How aware are we of ourselves and what, how we kind of feel and where things came from? So you hit it there. Like, for example, there's the I'm asking my partner and, well, they're not really giving me much to go on. What do I do now? Right? I don't want to still make the same mistakes, but when I ask, I don't get that much information. Or there's the, hey, um, I, I don't want to tell them. I don't want to tell them
Mhm.
what I need. Either they should know or they don't love me or they're not paying attention. So that can be sometimes a feeling that people will have of like, oh man, like, or like you said, well, now this is work because we all, we watched maybe a few too many Disney movies as a kid and we thought
Right? Yeah.
it was going to be this automatic, like, yes, we're ready to, do all these things. And it's like, no, we're people here navigating life. So
Yeah.
you've shared with us some tips on how to kind of navigate the waters of, this when your partner's not giving you maybe as much as you'd like. What would you say to the partner that is feeling like, man, like I don't want to ask and say because that takes the romance or mystery, or I feel they don't know me, or maybe that makes me a problem. What do you say to that situation?
Yeah. So hold on, because what I have to share might be uncomfortable to listen to as well. The only person who you can say really knew you, whether they attached to you or not, and could sense what you needed, is the love of a mother. They're the only ones biologically, whether they fought it or not, or there or not, right? That has that, oh, they need to be fed. Oh, they need to be changed. Oh, I can look at you and I know exactly what you need. I have 3 kids. I look at them and I'm like, do you need time alone? Do you need to rest? Like, I'm able to just see them and know. You cannot expect that from any other person in your life. You might meet people who are very intuitively in touch with things, who can look at you and get an idea, and that feels good. But you're already projecting onto them that mother kind of like, oh, you just know me. That is the only relationship we can see in science where there's like, it's like the sixth sense. They just know. So what happens is, if that wasn't really met in our childhood, right? I didn't have that type of mother who just knew. We project that on in our relationship. You should just know. You should fulfill that. Or if the mom was a little too codependent, like, I'm going to give you everything. I'm going to know everything ahead of time, and I'm still ironing your socks, right? Like, then you're like, oh, okay, right? Like, that's where it goes, well, that's not all relationships. That's not all relationships. That is a very special type of relationship. And we have to learn how to respect our partner as someone separate from that maternal love. They can't read our minds. They're so busy in their own minds. Are you reading
Yes.
their mind? Probably not. And if you do, you might be hypersensitive to not cause them to get angry, which also makes you have a superpower of also knowing what they need on the other, like, this would make you happy, right? Like, that's also learned anxiety. So if you're like, well, I always know what they need and I always pay attention, you probably are hypersensitive to those things. And that is your own stuff to work through as well. So yes, it might feel like mentally, well, they should just know, but please remove them from the role of your mom. Cause like I said in the beginning, like that just kind of throws off other things you want to have happen later on.
Yes, girl, which we
And
don't have
right?
problems with.
Yeah. And the other part is just to respect that no one should have to just know when it comes to you. Really, the issue is you're uncomfortable being vulnerable and saying out loud your needs because it feels selfish, because maybe somebody told you at one point, or you watch somebody come across as selfish for speaking their needs or being too demanding, or, whatever it might be. That's your work to do in the
Yes.
context of your relationship. Like, personal growth, only for me, it just makes sense. The personal growth is happening in the context of relationship. Why else would we work on ourselves to be a better version of us? Unless it's for friendships, coworkers, all relationships. It's that legacy piece again. If we just work on ourselves and we stay on an island, cool.
But
Like, where are we
yeah.
going?
Yeah.
Like, what's the
What's the
point?
point? Yes. Yes. And I like
Yeah.
how you said, I would love to talk about how to live your best life while in relationship with someone who is not on the same trajectory. Because so far what we've been discussing is key when you're like, you're having those moments where, okay, I'm trying to get something better. Give me some info. Maybe they're not ready or they can't put it into words. Or okay, well, I'm identifying that I could maybe make some changes, but gosh, I feel like this if I start to say what I want or blah blah blah, right? Okay, so those are some pitfalls. And then we talked about the other, you know, ways to get out of that, and then also some pitfalls we all get into, right? So
Yeah.
right now what I'm seeing, okay, and Lord knows, we know that what we see is that's not real truth because there's so many algorithms running at any given point in time. Like, oh
Right.
gosh. But I think it's important to speak to because there's a big thing of like, hey, if they're not doing it for you, cut them off. Hey, if they're not on your team,
Yeah.
there's this kind of essence of real just cut off anything that doesn't make us feel good. And I am not a believer of
Mhm.
that. I do believe there is a time where, yes, if you have talked things through, and certain things are at an impasse, then yeah, maybe you're starting to kind of consider some things. But I do not believe, if you have not, my belief is thus. We come to Shakespeare once more. No, my
Yes.
belief is that
Right.
if you've talked to have you talked to the person? Have you
Yeah.
tried to work anything out? Have you shared what your problems are? Have you been honest about what your issue is? Or are you just like, this doesn't feel good and I'm out? So I
Right.
love what you said because it talks about a specific period in time where maybe one of the two is evolving and growing and there's new things happening, but your partner isn't. So
Right.
please tell us some tips of how to navigate that space of time so that, the person just doesn't act rash and cut
Yep.
off, an important relationship.
Yeah. So what I always recommend is when anybody is going to start a personal growth journey, like,
Mm-hmm.
hey, I'm going to take care of this, even if it's a health journey, that it is a conversation you have with your partner, not to get approval or even to have them cheerlead you on, but just to let them know it's going to shift and change things. It's kind of like my brother's a runner, marathon runner, and his wife knows when marathon season comes, it's like hours away on the weekend, right? It's hours. It's a different type of eating. It's like all of these things that will impact that. He might be more testy with her because he's just all up on the adrenaline, right? All of these different things will happen and impact the relationship, but they have that discussion, right? It's the same with any personal growth to go, hey, I'll use the example of like those who are on a health journey of like, hey, I'm going to remove certain things from my diet. Maybe we used to enjoy having wine together. I'm taking that out. That's going to impact us. What are other ways we're going to be able to connect? What are other things we're going to be willing to do? And how do you feel about drinking by yourself? Right? Like these are discussions we don't have. We just go, I want to work on myself. I'm going to learn this. I'm going to do this skill. I'm going to do this. And we don't go, how how will this hurt or help us? And what do we want to do to buffer it? How do we want to, so we bring our partner along on the journey by just sharing with them our journey. Even if they're like, oh my God, I'm so tired of hearing it, you can be like, I am being preventative of making sure you're along because I don't want to get to the end and it feel like I have a doctorate in this and you have, you're still in grade school. Like I want you to kind of, you don't have to do the same goal, but I want you to be like aware of these
Yes.
things. And I just see it as planting seeds, right? Like I don't need my partner to hit the same goals as me, but he's going to learn along the way. It's going to plant seeds just like for me and vice versa, right? Like he goes on something. If I stand beside him, I'm going to learn something along the way. Seeds will be planted. And then later on, I'll be like, oh, I love that. I want to learn more about it. So if you find yourself on your personal growth journey and you've already gotten into a university degree with it, right? Like you're learning so much that you feel like there's such a divide. It's sit down with your partner and acknowledge, I know I'm changing. Half the battle is us taking ownership and
Mm-hmm.
going, I know I change. I think differently. I've removed some things from my life that you haven't, which is fine. There's no judgment. I just know that impacts us and impacts how we relate and how can we start to connect again. One of the biggest things for every couple I work with, I have them sit down and say, what is it we actually enjoy doing together now?
Mm-hmm.
And I tell them it has to be beyond sitting on the couch and watching something. Most of the time they can't even agree on what they're going to watch, but like, what do you actually enjoy doing together?
Yeah.
If you've been together for so long, it starts to become autopilot and you do your own things. So what does that look like? What are the things you used to do that you might go, actually, I don't enjoy that now, or my body has changed, I'm not comfortable doing it, or whatever. Okay, well, what are the new things? There are millions of things to try in the world, right? Like there's different places to go, different restaurants, whatever. But you won't know until you start those discussions of connection.
Yes.
And you'll need those to help you while one of you's on a personal growth journey. I think one of the biggest pitfalls too, especially like the spiritual growth kind of gurus and things, is that they're not talking more about the context of relationship. And they do sort of encourage well, you've got to shed the old skin. This person's not supporting you. And I just think, wow, that's really you're gonna jump back into another relationship that will not fulfill everything as well. or you're going to jump in with somebody who's on their personal growth journey, but hasn't learned how to do it in relationship.
Yeah.
And then you both are going to be like battling each other with, and my guru said this. Well, my abilities are this. Well, I can do this. Well, I'm very in tune to your needs for this. And it's like, wow, that's a fun battle to have instead of how do we relate in the context of our personal growth?
Absolutely. I love the way that you shared doing this. So my husband and I, we do this, but we learned this over time. And we learned this over the trial and error of one thing we've always had is a great support for one another. Meaning if he is onto a new day, then cool, I'm up for that. Like I'm just like, great, like awesome. But we would still get into kinks around what you discussed, where it's like, oh, you're going to do this new thing. Cool. I'm for it. I love you and I want you to have the best experience of life as possible. And if you're excited about this, let's go. But forgetting that second portion, even of saying, oh, wait a second, though, let's discuss a little bit about how this will affect us. What does this mean for now the timing of your day or the new habit you're adopting or so on and so forth? That was something that we had missed. And I love the way that you are guiding all of us to have a vocabulary around how to broach these subjects so that it is a very kind of inclusive way to say, hey, like I really want to try this new thing. I want to eat more fruits and vegetables. Oh, well, we usually eat meat all day. So now what does this look like for us?
Right.
Whatever it may be, it becomes a really fun and engaging experience. And I think that's great because it is very challenging for us when we went through that growth period of understanding, well, why aren't we connecting at this time? And it was just like, we're supportive of each other. So what's the issue? And then it was like, oh, because we're choosing things that are inevitably like changing the dynamics of maybe our day or our structure, like you said, these connecting points. And then now it's like weird. So this vocabulary you're giving us all is very powerful because it can prevent that and cause this growth
Right.
spurt to be an exciting time for the couple of like, yeah, let's kind of select some things. Now, what if though,
Yeah.
some, some folks they get into in a relationship and maybe their partner, well, you're speaking to high achieving couples, so maybe not. This is an issue for that. But sometimes really having these robust conversations about our plans and about, our dreams, our hopes, what, connecting on and thinking about, yeah, this will affect our day and stuff like that. Like these are certainly not things we're all taught with and how to do, right? So
Mhm. Yeah.
what if one of the two is just not ready to kind of think of life in that way? How can one navigate and start to see if this is going to evolve in a healthy way?
Yeah, good question. So you're right. With high achievers, what we usually see is more one of them is pretty set in the way it has to be instead of being flexible. But what you're saying is what if one's not really even ready to look at life from a different perspective or change habits or like why do I need to, right? And I do see that with highly motivated individuals, they'll sometimes partner up with somebody who they feel like that's tugboating along, right? Like, come on, and there's a point where we have to respect other people's journeys, right? And I always remind people that a system is changed by one little piece of it. Like if I start, if I look at like a watch, right? One of those old fashioned watches with all the cogs and stuff. And if I turn one the opposite way, everything else is forced to move. It might take a little bit and it might fight the system, but it will adjust. So let's say I've noticed my partner really just doesn't want to talk about it. It's uncomfortable. They get angry and reactive. That's not the reason I want to have these conversations. Then I would rather be a lighthouse to change than a tugboat to it. And I love that analogy of going like, well, I'm going to drag you through this. I'm going to change. We're going to eat fruits and veggies. I don't care that you want meat every day. Like, you will do this. And it's like, again, parent role. And so it's like, no, I'd rather go, wow, let me be a lighthouse to how I can tell this is changing me. Let them see the change. Let them see the effects of it. Let me continue to encourage them to be a part of it and go, when you're ready, I can't wait for that. I can't wait for us to be side by side in this, but I respect that you're not ready right now and meaning it, not passive aggressive. Because sometimes, especially high achievers, we're really good with words. We're like, when you're ready to do that, I'll be here, maybe, right? Like we're like throwing little side comments. But no, to just genuinely be like, when you're ready, I'm here. When you want to learn, more things on mindset and let go of scarcity or whatever, all like it
Sure,
can be
sure.
anything. I'm here. I'm here. I'm ready. But I want to respect where you are. And so then you have to sort of decide, how far do you go down your journey outside the context of the relationship, and how much do you kind of go, okay, I can pause for a little bit. It's not the end of the world, right? And I pause, meaning I'm not stop your habits, but don't go way further into this new mindset and be like, I really want you to come along for the ride. So I'm going to pause and let's just see when you're ready. But I'm going to ask about it and be a squeaky wheel. It's going to annoy the heck out of you. But eventually the seed will grow. I think there's just something we get very emotionally wrapped up in how things should be. And we remove the logic out of, we're two individual people. We have different life paths, different purposes, and we're trying to meld those together and create a we, but it still has to have like the Venn diagram, right? There's still like a center that's us, but there's still sections that's individual.
Absolutely.
And what does that look like? And how do we respect that part of it? Now, there is a point where some get to, I don't like that you continue to drink and smoke, right? And like that, I really am realizing I can't live with. And so if that's, I always say, what is your line in the sand? And you need to stick with it, not budge, not go, okay, well, now I'm going to move that line away and go over here. Like, really, what are the things that you're like, even though I love you, I can't live with this?
Yes.
And then look at, what does that mean? What does that look like? Is your partner willing to make the changes based on that? But know that that needs to be a very set, not I'm threatening to see if you'll change, but truly, if you don't change, I get it. You get the choice, but I can't live this way.
Yes, yes,
And I
yes.
don't want to live in separate homes, right? Like I don't want to, like, I'm not looking to open our relationship. So I realize I can't be with you. That is the hardest piece, because that's really choosing you and your health and what you see as a greater growth. That's the point where I go, okay, that makes sense then to go question the relationship. And I will have individuals come to me who are at that point and their partner's still like, I don't want to talk to anybody. I don't want to, we don't need help. It's all you. You're the problem. Like they've pointed the finger at the other because it's so hard to look at themselves.
Yes.
And vice versa, right? It's easier for the partner to go, well, they're the problem. And then I go, well, from the beginning, when you started running that marathon, did you talk about the changes and shifts? And it's like, well, no, I didn't know to do that. I get it. But there's fault on both sides. When a relationship like that starts to pull apart, the lack of information doesn't mean that we're, not going to be at fault for something. It's something we
Absolutely.
realize later on. Like, oh, I didn't realize that. Now I see it, and now I can't necessarily fix that, or I can, right? We have options. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That is so key. Awareness, being able to be confident and the reason why I use the word confident is because whenever we are navigating a new idea, this new prospect of I can I can do something, run a marathon or I can be more loving in my conversation and not inadvertently demean the person that I love or parent them or whether it's, oh, I want to start this new business or change something in life. It's exciting and beautiful and it's a vulnerable place. And we want so much for our partner to, we hope that they would also be like, yeah, let's, oftentimes that's not the case.
Yeah.
It goes
Yeah.
in varying milder forms, but we certainly don't want them to be totally just not caring, removed.
Yeah.
And we certainly don't want them to be against it. So when we are navigating these things and we're navigating these different aspects of what our partner may or may not be feeling from this new dynamic idea in our minds, we have to have this confidence to stay the course in these incremental times that we're going forward. We want to honor the relationship. We also have our own fears and doubts as we're continuing the path. And so it's
Right.
this wonderful, somewhat lazy river in which we are just
Yeah.
going, meandering through life, navigating all these things. And it's just this amazing thing we get to do. And we have our feelings, right?
Yep.
Now, you've given us a lot of fantastic things we can do, practically, things we can say, ways that we can take a look at ourselves and at the responses we receive. You said something that we cannot close without because it's key. My method of transformation is transformation made easier through joy. And so when you said that you help people with humor, I'm like, yes, 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 because you know what I'm saying? Like it doesn't, I think for adults,
Yeah.
and what got me to develop my method was for adults, I realized that, you know, it's always made serious and lengthily.
Yep.
And so I was like, hey, why not change with joy and fun and creativity? And we're still going to make the big leaps, but it doesn't have to be this slog. And so please let
Yeah.
us know how you use and infuse humor and what you
Mhm.
recommend with humor to navigate healthier relationships as high achievers and just make our relationships better.
Yeah. Yeah. I've always been the type to enjoy making people laugh. So whether it be the analogies I share or a quick little, side note or something in a couple session, no matter how tension driven it gets, um, there's a balance to bringing in the humor to it, to making people laugh. And it's almost like when we cry so much, then all of a sudden we start laughing, right? Like
Yes.
our bodies need that respite. Our bodies need the opposite. And for a long time, I did grief work really specific to hidden grief. So, not just death, but grief and adjustment in life. And I would use humor there as well. I mean, it really is just part of who I am. But it was like I would use that, and people would say, God, just being able to laugh and laugh at what I've for so long seen as so heavy and
Mm-hmm.
negative gives me perspective. And in couples therapy and in a relationship, if you cannot laugh at yourself, if you cannot laugh at the situation and not jaded laughing, like, like you're like, oh, that's not real laughter. That's what are you going to do to me laughter, right? Like, it doesn't seem bad. But if we can really laugh, then all of a sudden it's like, ah, I have a new perspective. I can scan out and really see what's going on and then, be able to be creative in opportunities to shift and change things. So, one of the things I have couples do is I talk to them about what can you do this week? Like your homework is to do something that makes you guys laugh. For some, it's go jump on a trampoline together, right? Like something that's just playful and laughter. For others, it's watching something together.
Mm-hmm.
We're all different. We all have different things. And I hear often, well, we used to laugh so much together, but then life just got serious.
Yes.
And I remind them life was always serious. That didn't shift. It's their perspective on their responsibility with that seriousness, right?
Yes.
And the weight of it, because some of it is age, right? As we age, family members age and they die. And so there's those things, or we're more responsible for, our parents, or if you have children, you're responsible for those things. Like there is more responsibility as we get older. So yes, that creates a seriousness, but there are plenty of people who face that without seriousness, who laugh throughout it, who do probably a poor job of taking care of balancing all the things, right? And we would be like very critical of them, but they're not as serious. So it's really a perspective. It's a matter of how we experience life. And to me, I'd rather bring joy into a couple session, even if they're divorcing, if they're working with me to have an amicable divorce, if I can bring laughter and joy into okay, we can get through this. It gives hope through
Yes.
whatever you're going through, because you'll realize at the end of the tunnel, there is still a light, even if right now you feel like we're at the darkest of dark. It's like, okay, I will hold the vision of the light for the future, and I'm going to make you laugh a little bit, so maybe you get a little peek of what it could be, because it won't always feel this dark and deep. Yeah.
Yes. Oh my gosh, I love that. It's been such a joy to have you on. You are just such a dynamo with everything that you share and all the gifts that you bring to the table. Please tell us. I know, look, in the show notes, I'm going to have listed all this stuff, but please tell us where we can connect with you and where you'd like us to reach out.
Yeah, so you can find me on my website, katierössler.com. Instagram is where I'm most active, and on LinkedIn, so Katie Rössler. And I would love to offer for you guys to have that level 10 relationship assessment like I talked about. So find that it is free. You come in, it's a 30-minute call for both you and your partner. If your partner's not into it yet, I swear, after you come back with your results, they're usually like, wait, I want to share my point of view and my thoughts. So inevitably it happens where the partner will eventually come and do the call as well. So don't worry. But yes, you can do it by yourself. And you can do it even if your partner doesn't do it. And it gives you a perspective of what do we need to work on or what do I need to work on, right? From my perspective of the problems in my relationship. So I encourage you to check that out. And I have a podcast called The Balance Code for High Achievers. We talk about work-life balance in all its contexts. So you can find me over there too.
Oh, fantastic. And everything will be linked below. And loved ones, friends, listeners, viewers, if you are working with Katie or even navigating something that requires you to feel more confident, and you're just like, hey, how do I even access confidence? Which, by the way, you can, even if you don't identify as a confident person, reach out to me at bestlifecoaching.online or teemaree.com. And no matter what, just connect with us because we love to connect with you, hear from you, and serve you when you're ready. So this has been phenomenal. Katie, thank you so much. I will definitely be reaching out to you and making sure that we're connected. And gosh, I cannot wait. Oh, really quickly before we go, and you can help folks,
Yes.
even though you're in Germany, you help folks all over, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Most of my clients are online around the world. So that's why I said you can call in for that level 10 relationship assessment. We just do it on Zoom. Easy peasy.
Awesome. Okay. I do too. So I want to make sure because, yeah. Yay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Have a great day, night, all the above, and make sure that you tune in to the next Your Best podcast. I'm Teemaree, and this was Katie, and we are out. See you at the next one.